Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us today and joining this webinar, Building Beyond the Game, how Sprowls Horizon Sports Park is driving economic growth and shaping the community. My name is Jim Arnold. I'm a partner with Sports Facilities Companies. Today, I'm fortunate enough to join you as your moderator. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar, we are recording. So we will send out that recording to all registered participants at its conclusion. At the end of the webinar today, we will have a time for live Q&A. So as we go through, if you have any questions or think of any questions, please use the chat Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We will try to get to as many of those live as we can, but we will also answer any questions that we don't get to as part of the follow-up for all registered participants. And last but not least, if you're having any technical issues, use that Q&A chat as well. We do have a support team here ready to assist as needed. So with that said, let's set the stage a little for today's conversation. On the screen, you're seeing a master plan of Sprowls Horizon Park. It is a forward-thinking, next-gen facility located in Pinellas Park, Florida. The city had a vision and goals of creating a destination that would drive sports tourism, increase quality of life, and act as a true year-round gathering spot for all of its residents. So the plan you're seeing in front of you shows kind of the assets. It has 6 spring training replica baseball and softball fields, a community multi-purpose field, an outdoor hockey rink, multiple walking trails and areas that are all centered around a large central gathering plaza. And that plaza was designed with the idea of driving community engagement and creating event activation throughout the year. So we are currently under construction with the facility with a planned 2026 opening. So today we will hear from city leaders and the design build partners who took this from a vision and are currently turning it into reality. And so without further ado, what I'd like to do is pass this over to Nick and allow our panelists to introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm Nick Roner, Community Development Administrator with the City of Pinellas Park. My role in this project is twofold. One, this project is located in the CRA. A CRA is a community redevelopment area, and I'm the liaison to the agency. It's a board that oversees redevelopment projects. And I'm also the administrator role as the planning and building director, so to speak. So our role functions in 2 areas: planning, visioning, and permitting and structures, which this project hits a lot of that. So that's who I am and my basic role.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom Chaparkoff. I'm the architect of record on the project. I'm a senior vice president and director of O Sports, a sports architecture and entertainment company here nationally. We have partnered with SFC and many municipalities multiple times to bring sports tourism and sports center projects to life, and in this case, in a very different way. So I'm glad to be here, and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Kelbach. I am the director of our sports field practice here within O Sports and Osborne Engineering. I'm a civil engineer by trade, but I led up the design of all the horizontal elements. That includes all play fields, parking lots, really anything outside the vertical structures on site. Worked hand in hand with Tom, Nick, everyone else here on the call to really provide a place for everyone to get outside and play, which we'll talk about more. Thank you all.
My name is Randy Austin. I'm a project executive at Park and Eliezer Construction. We are the general contractor on Sprowls Horizon Park. Have kind of 2 roles in pre-construction. Work with the design team in the city in SHP from a budget and schedule alignment aspect, and once that gets turned over to our operations for construction, my role is more toward support and oversight of the project team, the field team, from budget, safety, quality control, and again, schedule. Turn it over to John.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Wolf. I'm with SFC in our development services, serving in a project executive role. With that, the collaboration, as everyone has talked about on this project, we come in not only from the sports expertise, as most of the panelists here demonstrate, but also from the operational voice. And we have partnered with everybody as my role as the owner's rep in that bridge to that operations, which SFC manages afterwards.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, panelists. So to get us started, Nick, I mentioned kind of at a high level some of the goals of this project, but if you could spend a few minutes talking us through the goals and the vision of the city, kind of the why behind it.
Well, it's complex yet simple. Right? It actually started off as a much smaller vision. So Ute Park itself was actually was actually, depending which timeline you look at, a city park. It's a traditional neighborhood park, a larger than typical neighborhood park that fed into different activities. Baseball, the rink's been there before, hockey, football, soccer, you name it, passive, active. And we were looking at revamping it to be a much higher quality version of activities. And so we ended up, do this in a short version. We ended up putting together a funding appropriation at a state level, and it happened to be in the Community Redevelopment Agency that I mentioned earlier and in the area, and which offsets funding. And I could go into that a little later, to make those improvements on a much larger scale. And as the submittals went through and the vision started changing, as the state decided at some point to fund the initial amount, said, hey, this might be a much more better aspect to look at it from a more regional component and a regional aspect, not just local. And so we ended up getting increased funding, about $13.5 million. We had the match. Again, thank God for a CRA. That's where it comes in. So our vision changed to much more regionally and outside of just the Pinellas Park area, to where we could actually bring in an economic component while still serving the local residents and tying them together. For those who don't know Pinellas Park is about 30 minutes to Clearwater, 25 minutes to St. Pete, 30 minutes to Tampa. So basically half hour to beaches, half hour to the mini cosmopolitan city of Tampa, and right in the middle of it all. And so this is in the middle of it all in terms of access on US 19, access on 62nd. I know you guys will know what name is. These are introductory roads that are close to 275 and another expressway called the Selman. So you get through us to get everywhere. So this is a perfect spot for such a larger scale project, which means bringing a economic component from moving. Traditionally, we're more of a manufacturing R&D type of function. That's our baseline for taxes. This changes that game significantly. So that was the vision: small, local, now larger, sharing, and you'll hear that theme throughout: collaboration.
That's great. And with such a unique location and entering into some of these mixed uses, John, talk a little bit about kind of the thought process here. Right? This facility was designed with some unique spring training elements and trying to provide a unique experience to players and guests alike, as well as residents. Talk a little bit through that vision of the design for us, if you can.
Yeah, the vision was accomplished and within the site constraints. And my compliments to Dan and Tom and their teams, because we had a lot of different constraints to make these 6 fields fit. And not only did they have to fit, but what we did is we dimensioned them to mimic exactly what those 6 spring training facilities are in Florida. We also had the varying fence lines, and you can definitely tell how these fields are shaped. And with that, you can see the also height in the fence. And speaking of heights, and on a fence, we actually have our own monster in left field. And that's going to be pretty awesome when that left fielder is playing up there and looks up and feels just like he's at that complex as well. And so with that, we also have some very pleasant amenities that are tributes to the spring training. Locally, everyone knows the infamous Tiki Bar in left field. We have our own Tiki Bar here at this complex too as well. So that's going to be that amenity for everyone there. And at each of the fields, you'll get the true feel for that major league team in that complex with the colors, recognition of championships, retired numbers. We also have large baseballs demonstrating, those team aspects. And every player and spectator will truly feel their knowledge that they'll know where they are experientially from that end. Thank you.
Yep, that's great. And Nick, just in from a city's perspective, what was kind of the reaction at that? Because I know a lot of cities kind of go in thinking, hey, it's going to kind of look like it did or look as it is. Tell me a little bit just about the excitement of the city from a standpoint of having something completely different and unique.
Yeah, it's actually, a very simple word. I've used it several times before, and it resonates. Pride, really, really, and in this sense, it's yes, there's an economic base to this that it's being perceived, but also, wow, we could accomplish something outside of something just for the community only. We can invite others to see our community, others to experience our community through this project, through the events this project will have, through the gaming this project will have. The local residents come by and hang out and check things out as they go along, and it's a draw. And so the pride that we could accomplish this, and we're almost there, is the one, a little bit of surprise, because I think we accomplished a lot, but two, it shows that we are as competitive as anyone else around us. So that's what it is.
That's great. And John, you mentioned first, and I think our guests are going to hear a lot of our panelists talk about the collaboration and kind of kudos for different areas, which is kind of a really cool part about this project is you have an entire design, build, and public and operator team all in place, which is unique for a public entity to enter this type of structure. So Nick, talk to us just a little bit about the structure of this design build and the partnership, how it came together, and maybe some of the moving parts that needed to happen for the city to really get behind this.
Yeah, so it's becoming humble as a city. I think often cities and those who are cities who are working with cities on here that will review this sometime in the future or thinking about it now. It's important to know that as a government entity, our job is to set, I like using this term, I know with 30 miles from the beach, is set the beach, right? We provide the infrastructure, we make sure all the unique utilities are there, all the building and permitting and planning models are in place, and get out of the way of the private side. That's what this model is really is. We could set the beach, we could provide all the nuances in terms of infrastructure, but the construction and managing of this is not in our wheelhouse, and that's very unique because we are one and we're separate. The partnership is a private entity assisting and managing and constructing this facility for us, but at the same time it is us, and it's a new dynamic, and it's an important one because we could not accomplish this alone without this. It would be the old project that I was talking about on a small level on a smaller project. We could handle that maybe. But this is a new model, and we hope to replicate that down the road with other similar projects. And that's a big change, and that's how this came together. Really, is becoming humble.
That's a great kind of a great word to use. And one of the other words that always sticks out in these type of deals when it comes through is trust. And just quickly, how did you? This is a great team, a team with a lot of backgrounds and coming to the table with big portfolios, but how did the trust from a city's perspective, what was needed and necessary to kind of make that leap?
Early on conversations, once we went through the RFP process, election happened, everyone came together, and my role is very small. We have a fantastic project manager in the city, Aaron Peterson, which is not part of this conversation, maybe a future conversation, but he's one of those great networkers that helps connect all the threads and all the leads. My role really is to make sure the funding and the timing and the monies and the community spirit is keeps on going there, right? So that's our aspect. And then working with the partners and showing the team, sometimes other people from our public works division, our planning division, our PD, as part of a project, very nuanced needs that have come up to assist your team as well. And that's that collaboration. They met early on, talked about issues early on. We had, probably a couple of pre-development meetings and different aspects. And I think the real key that has been brought to this is we meet basically every other week, a couple of times a week, going over operations, management, marketing, and so forth. Constant conversation, constant learning and trusting the players that are there. That is another big key to this. But It's really having the right group, starting the conversation early, knowing the traps, and there's always going to be traps in the middle of this that come up that no one expects, but knowing the big impacts and the big issues that we need to overcome, that's the trust and the humbleness and the collaboration.
Great advice. And then before I ask this next question, just as a reminder, everyone on with us, if you do have questions, please make sure we're putting those down in that Q&A chat. John, from your side, you kind of wore some multiple hats. You led as owner's rep, but also representing SFC. You were bringing in the operational voices into the conversation. And we see a lot in this industry that projects get built, then operators get brought in. Talk a little bit about the importance or the value to having the operational voice in the room from day one and how that influenced some of the conversation and design decisions.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And yeah, getting operations in early is absolutely paramount, not just for successful design and construction, but for the goal of day one opening and then day 3,650 of year 10. I mean, it's that view for what we bring to the table with the design team and the construction. And with that, we had valuable feedback on efficiencies and the daily ops, so that everything from the welcoming experience to the day-to-day operations to the play and the spectating was going to be amazing on this. And what we did with that, we did several page turns. We've done many site walks with that. For example, on the F&B, the retail, how these tournaments are going to be hosted. We have that operational know-how and how those are going to be set up. And with that, we had the right design team and construction team that could make adjustments from that operation voice as we were evolving. So that said, we, back of house is not necessarily the most, it's called back for a reason, but we need to have the right storage, the right aspects for deliveries. I was used because I'm taller with another shorter person to sit in chairs. So that was fun. But, speaking to the beach element, we are in Florida. We also were very mindful of the color selections and how the operations was going to do that. Trash cans was another fun conversation, and how we were going to provide capacity for there and also tournaments, and just the overall aspects of congregation between tournaments. So as I said, the design team did a fantastic job, and Randy and the GC team were there just waiting to see what we were pointing at and making some adjustments from everything from sight lines to moving a gate because our maintenance equipment wasn't going to be able to get through, or it was going to restrict access. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. And the best thing we want to say is when day one, we're not getting a 1-star rating or somebody asks why they put something there. And we want everyone to rave about this place and say, this is awesome. I love this place and Pinellas Park. So that's some key high points that we had, and we still have a little bit to go.
Great. Well, John, Nick, I'll give you a little break here. I know we just peppered you with a few questions each. Tom, I'm going to call on you kind of with a bit of this follow-up to John's answer of, from a design perspective in leading this design, the collaboration with the operations, but also just overall kind of the collaboration as a group in this project structure. Talk through some of, your opinions and the value that it created for the overall success of the project.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I mean, it's a little redundant, but I think what's really important is so many times in so many projects all over the country, people have their role, right? You have your civil engineer, you have your architect, you have your owner's rep, and then you have the client, and whether the client's municipality or other. There's these handcuffs that keep everybody in their discipline. And, I think what's really great about this project from its inception a couple years ago was that, everybody bought in from day one, right? Like Nick's team, going back to his sentiment about being humble, really relied on John and his team to kind of, help them to glory land. And it allowed O Sports and our Osborne partners to really like do what we do best and not get restricted by lines and I get paid to do this, you get paid to do that. I think it's really important that we were really all inclusive. It was, whether it's deemed officially or not, it was a very integrated project, right? It definitely has an IPD type of mentality, but I've been a part of those other when I, did a Disney work. This is very different. So, it made things like, site constraints and designs, right? Like the collaboration literally allowed us to work through some very big issues, and those issues really became white noise. And Nick, I would say that, like, one of the things Mr. Peterson did so well is help us navigate the power lines through the site, right? We have a significant power line from that we have to contend with. It's a significant boundary. Obviously, the residential component to our north is a big deal, traffic mitigation. So when we have all of the partners involved, it allows us to really operationally understand how the building's going to be serviced from a maintenance and operations standpoint, John. But it also allows us to understand how we're going to move hundreds of kids through this place safely and securely. And it was really allows us to really blend sports tourism with a tournament complex.
And you mentioned a couple things, Tom, there that stuck out to me. Especially when we start looking at projects like this that have a traditional approach of significant site challenges, and that from a design perspective, pretty easy to design what looks good, and then when you hand it off to the contractor, valuable lessons get learned pretty quickly in terms of cost, delays, capabilities. This structure seems to, knock on wood, seem to eliminate a lot of that. And so, Randy, I'm going to bring you in from the construction standpoint. Talk a little bit about this structure, about some of those challenges, but also the collaboration of this group that have allowed a project with a pretty intense site and a strict budget stay on time and stay on budget.
Yeah, I think with with projects of this size, the collaboration is important from an efficiency standpoint, not just about or as it relates to the construction schedule. It's about early collaboration, helping us prevent delays before they happen. So I think one of the biggest reasons that this project is on track during construction is because of the collaboration was built into the DNA of the team kind of from day one, with the goal of preventing unforeseen costs and unexpected delays. So having the design team, operations, construction team in the same conversation from the start kind of helped us prevent handoff delays. It allowed us to be as efficient as possible as it relates to the permitting process. And instead of reacting to issues during construction, we were able to solve them before they appeared in the field. So having feedback early and not after problems arose provided a real world benefit. And during pre-construction, we were able to provide some constructability and cost reduction feedback, helping us avoid potential time-consuming redesign or permitting holdups, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the other things that we were, that the collaboration and efficiency helped with is, I think, the shared input led to an aligned budget expectations. It led to leaner procurement and a more efficient and predictable schedule. So from a construction and GC side, being able to have input, especially from a construction schedule standpoint, to make sure we all have the same expectations is a significant benefit for us. And I felt like it mattered for the city because it helps us collaborate early. We're not just saving money, we're keeping the project's momentum. The momentum is critical to the community watching a project like this take shape as well. The efficiency didn't really come from shortcuts. It came from alignment. Somebody said earlier, trust. It came from trust and it came from transparency. And I think bringing in all of the voices early allowed us to move quickly without cutting corners. And it allowed us to keep the project's momentum again. So I think that early collaboration, all the design team, operations, the city all working together prior to hitting construction was just a gigantic benefit for us and our field team.
Yeah. Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick.
Because they hit on two, maybe actually a dozen, but I'm going to knock it down to two important points. So, internally, when we got together and started collaborating from our building side, our building permitting side, to our partners outside, like Duke Energy, you mentioned, the power lines, and to our Southwest Management Water District, all of them, they were in on these projects even when this project wasn't even being drawn yet, and that's a key. And my role and Aaron's role was really to help everyone understand the impacts, the positive, what we needed. And how this was going to roll, and everyone understood the project and the needs from our partners, which now became SFC's partners throughout the process. That's a key role. If you are a city, you want to replicate this on every level, right? That's what we're learning from this. But you want to make sure everyone out there who touches this is in the know, not coming in the middle and coming in as needed. Because once you do that, then the delays start. Then the cost run up start. Then you got to figure out how to figure out the shortcuts. And we want to avoid that early on. So from a city's perspective, is bringing the partners are going to be part of this at some point, mapping it out, and that's where Aaron Peterson, we mentioned his name a few times here, has done a great job of, and then moving it forward from there. So that's really key to building that collaboration and trust.
And I'm going to give a panelist really quick because I'm going to shift focus here a little bit into more design and some of the challenges from the site and the design of the project. Before we do that, just from a project structure standpoint, is there any kind of final notes from anybody?
Jim, I would just say that I would like to define collaboration, right? Because people use the word a lot, and I don't think in this case it's a buzzword. I don't think what it is it's buy-in and it's accountability. Right. So in our case, and what I would encourage everyone to do is when somebody says we're going to be collaborative, right? The first answer or the first question you should ask, are you all in? Right. Do you know what you're accountable for doing? And, and I think that's what this team's doing really well and has done so far very well. Is it's not just collaborate to collaborate. It's accountability and full buy-in.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to allow you to keep the mic, Tom, since you took it. Transitioning a little bit kind of into the design and the facility. Talk through kind of just maybe at a high level, and then we can dig in a little bit on different pieces. The overall design philosophy, in particular, as this has two kind of goals of sports tourism and maximum engagement from local residents, two things that I think a lot of cities think are, oil and water. What was the design approach to trying to maximize both of those goals at the same time?
Well, I think it starts with, the fact that, this collective team understood the vision and we understood the mission. Right. And I think the mission and vision sometimes based on, tournament complex versus sports tourism, right? Those things are somewhat disconnected. And there's great examples all over this country. We got the Cedar Point Sports Center and Sports Force Park up in Ohio, which, has a lot of synergies going on. In Central Florida, we have the Northeast Regional Park, which is more, tournament complex type of stuff, right? I think, when you look at the vision of this project, it's about, the mission of this project, it's about physical excellence. It's about growth. Right. It's a growth like athletic growth for the participants and the community alike, and inclusivity. Right. Trying to make sure that this park is adding an asset to the site. So, when you talk about sports tourism, you talk about creating a complex that can handle hundreds of kids visiting, traveling, and as Nick mentioned, we have the proximity to the airport. I happen to be a Pinellas County resident, coincidentally. It's very easy to get to the airport. It's very easy to get to the beaches in any downtown. So that inclusivity is important. And one of the other pieces on this project is, I mentioned the residential component, but just north of the residential component is an outdoor mall. There's loaded with restaurants and shopping, so that gives people things to do. So like in between tournament play, right? There's, you can get 5 minutes away or less. You can, take a break, go shopping, get some food. But the vision, right, was to develop champions, create a healthy lifestyle, right? So like, the community, as you mentioned, Jim, there's a hub in the middle that's got, some hospitality and some food and beverage, a playground, a pavilion, right? It becomes a hub where people can go and just kind of hang out on a Saturday or Sunday or a Tuesday for that matter, right? And it's really just trying to set the standard for training and recreation and blending the difference between, sports tourism and tournament complex.
And I'm going to go just slightly off script here, and I'm going to reshare the master plan as we talk through some of the design here. And Dan, thank you for patiently waiting for your turn here. We talked about challenges. We mentioned power lines, smaller site budget. Walk through from designing and laying this facility out. Walk us through some of those challenges and some of the approaches that were taken to maybe turning some of those challenges into advantages or bonuses to the park.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I think I'll collectively speak for everyone when I say there was just a few challenges. That's a tongue-in-cheek comment there. The existing site before we started this whole project was a relatively low-lying area. It wasn't exactly dry. That as a pre-existing or as an existing condition to make a destination sports complex isn't exactly the greatest when you want to program these fields 24/7, 365 days a year. So from some horizontal challenges as far as site work elements, we had a very high seasonal high water table, which does not bode well for draining high performance synthetic turf fields or even constructing parking lots for that matter. And in addition, we were actually at the intersection of two major watersheds. We actually had the 100-year floodplain at two very drastically different elevations, one being influenced by a large drainage canal to the north, another being influenced by another large diversion swale to the south and bisecting the site north-south there. So our civil engineering team, I got to give big props to them. They went through endless amounts of earthwork modeling iterations, and we were working alongside Randy and his team at SFC to really understand what is that sweet spot of, we don't want to just import thousands of yards of controlled material here and bury the project budget and just moving dirt around. So we worked hand in hand to figure out where the best spot to raise and lower grades and really maximize the investment as far as site enabling activities went. And then the big one that's been mentioned before, there were also some pretty sizable vertical restrictions or constraints on the site. East-west across the page, basically right in the center of the where that break in the fields is a large transmission or high transmission power lines owned by Duke Energy. Not only are those a physical barrier, but the amount of static electricity they generate actually introduced a significant amount of potential problems in siting things like light poles. So we worked through an endless amount of layouts, even some outside the box thinking as far as lighting strategy for the fields to avoid that, which is really to the city's benefit because a couple of years after this project is set to be complete, Duke Energy plans to basically come on site and upgrade their high transmission power poles and actually add new lines. So we'd like to think that we help set up for a future-proof project. Outside agencies may come in and parklands, there's utility easements are quite common occurrence. Designing around not only the immediate need, but also potential future proofing it for other projects outside of the city's control.
And some of those challenges from a design perspective, yeah, lots of back and forth, lots of teamwork across the board, including a lot of feedback. Randy, from your team, as all of the different options all have different price tags to them. If you could talk through, some of those challenges or any additional challenges and how your team interacted with the overall project team to make sure that the solutions that were getting put in place were actually achievable solutions.
Yeah, so no site is perfect, and this one was no exception. Um, but I think what mattered was how we approached the challenges and having frequent and consistent communication with the city and the other project stakeholders. It really allowed us to address challenges in a timely manner. One of them being the existing soil and ground conditions. Despite pre-construction testing, on a large site, 40 plus acres, there are still going to be some unknowns that can pop up, and they did. We identified multiple pockets of unsuitable material and organics kind of throughout the site. But the issue was identified early. We were able to discuss them during our OACs, and in collaboration with the city staff, different departments, and even city resources, we were able to assess the unsuitable materials, a remediation plan for excavation, trucking and haul off and disposal. So we really were able to implement, rapid remediation and minimize the impact of the project schedule. I know the Duke Energy easement's been mentioned a couple times, but that I know it impacted design, but from a construction standpoint, even with the consistent pre-con communication and coordination with Duke Energy, ultimately Duke doesn't really get into their final power design for this project until we are, under construction. And what that meant was some of the anticipated design changed, and we had to make adjustments to not only our transformer location but our primary routes, which impacted a planned playground location. But again, because we were able to be part of the team early and we already had the communication and relationships in place with Duke Energy and their team, we were able to collaborate and quickly adjust the design. And again, without really any impactful schedule delay. Um, I think maybe another challenge we had was just from a space planning standpoint that was also mentioned earlier. We have multiple fields and amenities on one site. So for our site team led by our site superintendent, Ryan Barkus, we have project manager, Brian Venable, that the sequencing of this project and the construction is absolutely critical. So those early discussions and phase planning allowed our work to kind of flow to be as efficient as possible without gridlocking or painting ourselves into a corner, so to speak. Also, from a space planning standpoint, it was mentioned earlier, we have residential neighbors to the north. We have businesses immediately to the east and west. So, from a noise pollution standpoint and our impact on the surrounding neighborhood was a consideration during construction. And Ryan, again, our superintendent, met with the neighbors. He coordinated with our design team and our trade partners, the city, to determine, how do we achieve compaction in the necessary areas without using vibration compaction. And after collaborating, discussing, getting sign off from everybody, we were able to use static rolling instead of a vibratory roller, which ultimately reduced the disturbance to surrounding businesses and most importantly, the residents that were directly north of the project. So all of that was able to be addressed with really minimal impact to cost and schedule because of the early partnership that we were able to have with the entire team.
Yeah, well, I'll take that off screen now so we can get a little more personal in the boxes because the next question is a bit more qualitative. And Dan, I'm gonna lob it over to you, but any panelist who wants to join in as well. I was fortunate enough to be privy to a whole lot of the options that went back and forth, and there was with the challenges there. I don't even want to try to guess how many different versions there are. When a project has a set budget and it becomes difficult, I guess if you have any advice for how to continue to stay bold in the design and not give in to the temptation of, hey, this is hard, let's just go with what's worked before.
Yeah. Well, I think it helps to have, just a team with experience in, park and rec system design, at the table, as well as a construction trade partner as well. And what that allows you to do is really understand where you can maximize your investment. For instance, at Sprowls Horizon Park, I mentioned all the stormwater concerns. One area where we really maximized the project's budget was in utilizing synthetic turf, the synthetic turf fields aggregate base and drainage system that actually double dipped to accommodate some post-construction stormwater quality and quantity concerns on site. Otherwise, we'd be carving basins that would take up 10 out of the 40 acres on site. So that allows us to kind of maximize how much more we can put to the nice, pretty things that provide and drive aesthetic value on site. And then even then, we were working alongside John and his team with trade partners to understand, is it best to pursue, backstop style systems that are top of the line, or is it best to go with a slightly cheaper alternative that can be dressed up and really provide that wow factor to mimic a major league facility? So there's a lot of back and forth with really everyone on this call of, how do we maximize an aesthetic value or, hide infrastructure to, double dip in other areas.
Jim, can I tag on just to
Absolutely.
the vertical stuff? Yeah, the vertical stuff. I mean, I think to be bold is the fact that we decided to emulate Philadelphia, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Boston, Atlanta, and New York, right? So John mentioned those are the 6 ballparks we have. I mean, so we're maximizing what we're doing in the first place by coming up with a really bold idea. Right. And then the second part of that is there is vertical construction on this site, and going back to this team being super transparent with the needs of operations and maintenance of the complex, which is super important because that keeps costs down on year 10, is just understanding that simple architecture can still be great architecture. Right. So, we created, the facilities, the hospitality, the food and beverage, the support area, and the office space. And it's very simple. It's done in a very meaningful way. So it has a great optic to it, and it's aesthetically pleasing, but it was done very efficiently. So I think that just reminding, in place is just understanding as an architect, understanding where you get the most bang from your buck is just sometimes simple is the right direction.
Perfect. And we got about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to ask one final, actually 2-part question, and then we'll go to about 10 minutes of Q&A. Nick, I'm going to start with you from an overarching side of things. Why should city officials consider this type of project structure, and what should they be taking into account when making that decision?
So why they should consider this type of structure is, and again, I kind of said it earlier, and I'll reemphasize it, but a little more. I'll elaborate now, so you give me a little more time. Is really it's knowing your abilities and what your vision is. So we had a vision, right? It was a much smaller vision, and the state gave us a really generous boost, right? And we had to really flip on a dime and think about what the community needs are, what our economic needs are, and how does it benefit that community, which allowed this vision to go across. That's how we ended up here. It's a very important point because the benefits then of realizing, okay, what can we handle? Right, we have this vision, we can do it. We have the money, we all got this money. Where could we go from here? So then getting the right partner to help facilitate the construction and managing it. We manage our parks well, we manage our camps well, we manage all that well. That is everyday local need. This is a much grander scale, but yet has to be intimate with the community. And so, we have, when we looked at our RFP, we had to look at a group, and sports facilities really became that group that understood our needs, understood what the design needed to reflect, and how that transparency and that trust got built. What I would consider too, something that we didn't talk about much here, moving forward, we learned as we went, and we knew some of it, but it's really understanding when you do receive funding, whatever funding structure you have, especially ours is made up of, I said, the Community Redevelopment Agency, which I won't go into, tax increment financing. They have their own set of rules. It's understanding the rules, though, of that financing. Make sure whatever your funding is coming from, understand the rule through the state, understanding the rule that they're going to funnel the grant or the appropriation through. And then other monies that you're putting together, whether it's your general fund or other grants, and we utilize the combination. Understanding what are the traps that we need to be aware of to either go through, get resolved earlier on, depending on terms of reporting requirements, needs, and things of that. And then combining, we have a timeline. What's the best way to get through it with the right funnel of the funding? Very important point. That means your finance, your Office of Management and Budget Division, and your grant team, which grants happens to be under my bailiwick, so I made it a little easier, that they're on the same page with that. That's a key component. So, really two-part is vision and who best to serve the vision and build the vision, and understanding how to run the dollars behind the scenes to make it keep flowing. One of the reasons why we haven't had delays is we haven't had to stop to justify anything on this project financially from a funding standpoint of what we're appropriating to and how we're doing it, because we knocked that out early on. So those are the two big things, I think, as you get into this.
Thank you. And for the for the design construction team, and I will say there's quite a bit of career experience on this call, not because we got gray hair and no hair, but with all the experience we have here, and speaking from my experience as well, it is not often you get to the end of a successful project and your designers, your contractors, and your owner's rep can all be on a call getting along. And that's not a negative. It's just kind of sometimes the fact of these projects because of different roles and responsibilities. John, maybe I'll lead with you, and anybody who wants to add in. What's one piece of advice from your seat in this project of how to handle the relationships, any conflicts that might arise in this type of structure, and how to build the relationship the right way?
Yeah, we had a pretty straightforward communication protocol. I think all of us hit on the very get-go of a lot of pre-app meetings, identifying all the stakeholders and all the moving parts from that end. And, obviously P&E led with, OAC meetings and Procore. That really was a good hub. I know I'm not speaking to something that's not strange on a lot of projects, but that was a great information portal. And as we've all talked about, there was a lot of boots on the ground, and all of us was doing great site walkthroughs. And Nick will probably smile at this, but we probably had to reschedule our monthly visit. I mean, every time we try to do it, it rained. I
bought a pair of new boots, which I couldn't use.
Yeah. So, but I just want to show that rapport was there, that the owner kept engaged. Everything was communicating from there. And Nick hit on another thing that we also realized, that this is a local asset too, that also is an economic driver. And I think we all agree on that vision for how successful Sprowls is going to be, and that's wraps it up.
And then Tom or Randy, anything from your guys' side? Any parting pieces of wisdom on that side?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important that, just because, for the last 100 and something years, we've done design, we bid it, and then we build it, right? Like, the world changes. The only thing that hasn't really changed is the way we deliver projects. And I think that, I would encourage people to be more inclusive on the delivery of it. Again, my big thing is, like, if you build good relationships from the beginning, the problems become white noise, and you can get through the hard conversations very easily. And, I try to, promote that on all the projects. And I give a tremendous kudos to Pinellas Park for, going outside the box a little bit. And I think that many projects, whether they're, however they're contracted, it really doesn't matter. You have to like blur the lines between what you're getting paid to do and really just keep the eye on the ball at the end of the day. We're all paid to deliver a great project, right? And just being a part of that and buying in on the early on is the wisdom.
Yeah, I think also one of the things that happens in the construction industry is sometimes intentional or not, we can take ownership in silos. We get brought in and we bid a project, we get awarded a project, and we're under construction. If we do have issues that we run into, it's like, well, that's the city's issue, or that was a design issue, or we come up and there's a hurdle with the way that we appropriated or address site logistics, and we're reaching out to a design team. They're like, well, that's a construction issue. It was group ownership. Since we were all involved from early on, there was no siloed ownership of the project. If we were trying to address a problem, we were addressing our problem. It really, I don't want to repeat myself, but I can't stress how important the collaboration was and being part of a team from the beginning. And because we planned together, none of these challenges derailed us. And the site challenges are going to end up being invisible to the community. We were able to address them in real time and not impact the project or the vision, again, as we mentioned earlier. So, and I think that's ultimately, helped us protect the budget, helped us protect the schedule, and most importantly, deliver something that's really going to last for the community.
Great, great advice all around from everybody on those questions. So thank you guys. So we've got about 10 minutes left, 9 minutes left. We have some questions in our Q&A, so I'm going to get to a few of those. Again, if we do not get to your question, we will, as part of the follow-up to this, get answers out to everyone and all registered participants. You'll also get the recording of this webinar, as well as the site layout that we've shared. Will go out to everybody. One of the first questions that I want to hit on, because it's a great one and maybe we haven't talked a whole lot about it. Nick, you mentioned this was a former park. And we've heard multiple times from the design team and construction team, the neighbors who are close by. What strategies, Nick, from your end and the city's perspective, and then anybody else wants to layer on, have worked the best to gain trust from the residents who surround this, as well as the residents who ultimately use these facilities?
It's about what is going on up front, why the change, what the need is, and what do you need in this change and the value. It really comes down to the value of that community. And that area, we didn't talk about it much, but that area is a more low to moderate income area, and it butts up a county area as well called Lilman Exchange, which is in their own CRA. And so it wasn't just about residents in Pinellas Park. It was about our bordering residents too, and reaching out and explaining the change in the park, because they were a big utilizer of the park. And what the need is and how this will benefit the community in terms of economic generation, and at the same time investment, and at the same time, hey, what could they do on a Saturday night, and what could their kids get involved in, outside of the normal parameters. And once we understood that and they understood that, again, it's that conversation early. This project's been in the works even before we met everyone on this call, and so it's letting them know what they need and why we're changing it, and letting us know what we need, and continuing that conversation. Never hide from it. The other key thing, and again, we're going to bring up our project manager, and I'll bring up myself too, but our project manager's done a great job. And when we have an issue, or when the team has an issue, it was said earlier by Randy, it's not their issue or just the city's issue, it's our issue. And we hit it dead on. We deal with it right away. And even if we don't have an answer right away, you're never going to have an answer right away. But just acknowledgement of the concern and how we're going to address it goes a long way to keeping residents trusting and happy that this is going along. So that's the main strategy. It's just constant conversation, kind of like I'm doing now. So.
Yeah, that's right in line. I think what we've heard from a lot of these questions and answers, and a lot of throughout this, is the importance of communication. And that's great to hear. That's communication not within just the team, but also within the community. We talked a bit about one of the challenges was size of site, but also a budget. One of the questions came in based on the plan, asking if we were able to share the project budget with participants.
I can. It's 26.5 million in total. We'll hopefully take away a little bit of that, but we'll see. But that's the project budget. It's made up. I saw a couple of questions too on this. I'll jump in and try to hit them all. So maybe it'll make it easy for you. It's a mixture, like I said, of a TIF, and there's a question on the TIF. And a mixture of appropriation from the state and general fund dollars. It is a public funded facility. In this case, everyone has a unique model. I don't think there's a best model. This is the model that worked for us because it happened to be in a community redevelopment area. and half of the portion of that funding is of our match is that. So that's the general side of it. The TIF side of it, which is interesting because there's a question on there, I think by Colin, is that one is what a TIF is and why we view TIF is interesting. It defers tax dollars that are normally paid on the property. So in other words, this area is in a community redevelopment area, and the dollars that are normally go funded into the general fund get deferred into a community redevelopment fund. And for us, it's about 18 years. For this project, it would be about 10, but the overall is 18 years. And so the portion that would normally go into general fund goes into reinvesting into this with the hope of exacerbating more ad valorem tax or property tax. In this case, it'd be more on the ad valorem side to make up that difference and then exceed that. So that's what that is. So that's the model we chose because that's the point of the area and why it was designated as CRA. And that's what works for us.
Great. And I think we got time for a couple more here. We've mentioned a bit about the central gathering space in the plaza, and we had a few questions around, let's take out local leagues and traditional sports programs, but John or Tom or really anybody jump in. We had a question of what other type of community events are we kind of planning or seeing happen within these spaces? Maybe that wouldn't be your traditional sports complex activities.
I mean, I guess I can go first. I mean, I think, sports management is a big opportunity here, right? Like, teaching the youth or teaching people, how to manage and operate facilities with a lot of different, assets. Again, there's some soccer, soccer field, the ice rink, right? There's community involvement between, different entities in the Tampa St. Pete area. I think that, with the hospitality component to it, there's obviously employment that comes along with it that is more F&B like, right? So it starts to blend, the employment opportunity with this area. And I just think it's just general awareness of, being able to, use these fields for other than tournament play. I think that's why this is so great about the duality between sports tourism and competitive tournament play is it really also becomes a park. And in the questions there was like, how did you emulate them? I mean, these are Florida spring training fields, right? These are the Philadelphia Phillies spring training in Clearwater, the St. Louis and Tampa. So it's really trying to bring the community into a venue, into an asset that's familiar and usable.
And I'll end it with, the plaza area. We have a biweekly call with the Parks and Recs departments, with a lot of other Pinellas County and surrounding community areas that we're utilizing for multiple types of uses for the plaza and also, potential other uses on the fields. So it's very community focused. Tom also hit on the hockey rink, which is general public, also a playground. But yeah, I answered both questions on the communication we have our biweekly calls with all the community stakeholders, and we're seeing this as truly the opportunity for multiple types of things, not just sports.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. Well, we are up against our time here. I want to thank everyone who has taken the time out of their day to join us. I want to thank the panelists for your time, your dedication to this project coming on. Nick, to you and your community, congratulations on the vision.
Thank you.
And good luck and continued success to the project. Again, we will make sure that this webinar goes out. Thank you again, all participants who asked questions. We will make sure we get answers to everyone out, and we'll send that communication here shortly to all registered guests. So on behalf of sports facilities companies, the panelists, the design team, City of Pinellas Park, I want to thank everybody for your time and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.